Hi, hello. I'm Hans. I'm an intersex artist, activist, and talking Himalayan salt lamp. First of all, October 26th is Intersex Awareness Day. Are you aware? Today, in honor of the day, I'm going to share a little bit about how and when I first came out as intersex, why it was a little bit later in my life, and why that's also totally fine. I didn't really come out as intersex publicly until I was 23, even though I knew when I was 15. So that is using math. And you might be saying, Hans, that's a different age than the age that I thought you were going to say. I think that coming out at 23 is actually average, if not maybe a little bit young in intersex coming out years. I found out I was intersex when I was a teenager, and my first boyfriend at the time, the night before I was about to go in for a surgery, dumped me because I think he was freaked out, and in his words, he just wanted more time for longboarding. Which, of course, he told me over AOL Instant Messenger. And you know, in retrospect, I respect that level of dedication to living your best life. I remember at that point not really telling anybody, working up the courage to tell one really close friend, crying a lot. That was during the end of my Molgoth phase. And with intersex stuff, I tended to really just kind of stuff it down and not think about it. For me, from 15, my experience was maybe kind of uncommon because right when I found out, I actually also started going to intersex support group conferences. So even though I knew dozens of other intersex people and I had peers from a young age, the culture in those groups in 2010 was still kind of such that everyone would come together, tell their life stories, talk about all their intersex secrets, cry, and then leave and not tell anyone else in their regular life about the intersex stuff. So that influenced what was the norm for me. By the time I was 18, I generally felt pretty okay with accepting the intersex part of myself, but still influenced by that culture of it being a piece of me that I didn't really take into any other places. So I remember telling all of my very queer and also very closeted high school friends about that part of me, but asking them not to tell anybody else. Because I worried that it would be the kind of thing that would just be misunderstood. And I almost wasn't even worried that people would take it badly. It was more just that I didn't feel up to doing that very early educational work because it would have been a lot of heavy lifting. I went to a school of probably 2,000 kids, and there were probably 2 openly gay kids and no openly trans kids that I knew of. So coming out as something that just nobody knew what it was didn't seem like a very appealing option at the time. So that meant it just wasn't time yet. By the time I got to college, I was busy pretending to be cisgender, heterosexual, and excited about wearing peplum. During college, I really didn't actively think about intersex stuff at all. I was way too busy trying to build any sense of identity otherwise and to try to figure out what the anchors in my life were going to be. So it still didn't feel like it was time. But then by my late years of college, I do remember that was when I joined up with Interact. That's the organization that I work for now, but they have a program called Interact Youth, which is a private Facebook group for intersex people under 30 who are interested in doing some sort of advocacy work. Usually the group and the organization would provide these little opportunities, right? Like we need people to hold up a sign with something on it, or we need people to talk about their experiences because a journalist wants a quote. And so I started to do little things like that, kind of more behind the scenes, ranging all the way up to being quoted in Cosmo anonymously. Where exactly that is in the magazine, I am taking to my grave. And so even though I had started doing some of these little advocacy tasks, I still wasn't very open or very intentional about talking about intersex with people in my everyday life. I had a creative writing class in my senior year of college, and I chose to write an essay about intersex identity, which led to my professor saying that he didn't believe my experiences, and most of the dudes in the class hitting on me in weird, fetishizing ways for the rest of the semester. So, stuff. After I graduated college, I was involved with this event series, but it was called Cha-Cha, and it was this series that would put on community events where people could sign up to give very short talks about often design, but really any topics. I'd done a lot of volunteering and behind the scenes work, but I'd always known that I loved public speaking. I knew that I wanted to give a talk, but I didn't know what topic I could cover that I knew enough about that other people might find interesting. I asked several friends and I really took a lot of effort to chew it over, and I thought, why don't I talk about intersex stuff? So I did it. At this particular show, the crowd was pretty big. There were probably about 200 people. To my surprise, I gave the talk and people clapped, good, hearty, solid, not pity clapping. A really solid number of people came up to me afterwards telling me that they'd never heard of something like this and that they were interested and that they were appreciative of the chance to learn. That first experience with public speaking kind of cemented intersex advocacy as one of the anchors in my life. So I don't reference this talk a lot, namely because, one, the language that I use to talk about intersex issues now is obviously very different than what I used 4 years ago. And two, my haircut had very strong pinecone vibes at the time. So I've been out pretty openly, pretty publicly for about 4 years now since the point of giving that talk. And I guess I would define that as putting intersex in my social media handles, talking to strangers about it, gauging whether or not I want to talk to Uber and Lyft drivers about it, but because the more people hear my face talking about these kinds of things, the more people, maybe someday they have a cousin or a nephew who's born with genital differences or whatever, and they have a real face and they have a point of reference. They know someone as a segue into this issue and understanding what could be this set of human experiences. I came to the conclusion that that's really important to me. It's been quite a journey for me from mall goth, gonadectomy teen to professional intersex person, but it's been a pretty good one. And in my experience, when I was first grappling with being out in the sense of online and in media and in storytelling, one of the issues that I had was feeling this guilt or feeling like I'm maybe not intersex enough, because with my intersex type and with a lot of the ones where you find out as a teen, you're already a teenager, so you weren't subjected to non-consensual surgeries as a child. But now what I've landed on and my perspective is that for the world that we're working towards, no one should have to be subjected to intersex surgeries without their consent. And I think that it's wholly possible to center the stories of surgery survivors while also bringing awareness to the fact that there's just so many different intersex narratives, and they're all beautiful and wonderful. And the more of us that there are, the more of us are out there supporting the movement, being that face in someone's life to remember, oh hey, there's intersex people, I met one. I hope for a world where it's okay for more people to be out as intersex and maybe even at earlier ages, because already I have some awesome teen friends who are there and my heart just bursts. I'm so proud of all the babies who are stepping up and learning about who they are. And also, of course, coming out and being public, whether that's to friends or your school or social media, is totally not for everyone. So it's important to do whatever is right and safe for you, and I totally support that. So happy Intersex Awareness Day. Go and read this awesome article. It's about 26 things that allies can do for intersex people. Big and small, there's something for everybody. I'm gonna put that in the description so that everybody can check that out. And if you have an intersex friend in your life, go do something nice for them. People have friends. What are nice things that they do for them? Buy them an eclair. Help them get their ears pierced. I don't know. Anyway, I would love to know, if you're an intersex person, at what age you came out and what that felt like. And if you're not an intersex person, what nice thing would you do for your intersex friend? Let me know down in the comments. Go ahead and hit all those buttons for me, and I will see you soon.